So reports have broken that show that the number of illegal border crossers, so these are people who are in the United States, have illegally entered Canada and then subsequently claimed asylum, are up from last month to this month by 23%. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what this means, because the Liberal government has been continuously trying to say, look, there's really nothing to see here. We've got the situation under control. But I want to clarify with you what's going on. So over the last several months, Canada has seen, it's about a 1.5 year period, Canada has seen approximately 30,000 plus people enter Canada via this way. So these are people, again, that have reached safe spaces like upstate New York. They are illegally entering the country and then subsequently claiming asylum. But the numbers continue to increase, right? So even though there might be like a month increase from month to month or a month decrease from month to month, the reality is that over the time period, the numbers continue to increase. So I'm looking at, if you look at the period between January and July last year in 2017 to January and July this year's numbers are up. So the problem is that Justin Trudeau has basically made this a permanent, regular stream of entry into the country, because he set up permanent infrastructure at Roxham Road. He set up a permanent system of busing people into the Toronto area and putting them up in hotels. He set up permanent resources to process people's applications for work permits, etc. So of course these numbers are going to stay high because he's done nothing to suggest that he's going to close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States, which allows this to happen. What he's done is put in place permanent infrastructure. So of course people are going to access the country this way. And news of this gets out into the international community, right? I mean, people understand now that this, because the Liberals have put so much, hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure into this, that this is now essentially known as a permanent way to enter the country. And you have a zero day waiting time, right? So you're going to hear a lot in the media about these numbers. The things that you need to understand is that the numbers continue to increase overall, and that the government has made, under Justin Trudeau, no effort to close this loophole. So this is now a permanent stream of entry. The problem with that is that the government has not they've made a major change to Canada's immigration policy, and they haven't put in place anything to support this, right? So typically, if you're going to increase the number of humanitarian immigrants that Canada takes in, you really need to budget for that, right? That's why there is an immigration levels plan. We set the number of people that we bring into the country every year so that we can budget for things like language training. What's happening right now in Canada is that we've taken in, and look, the global migrant crisis is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of countries, but we've taken in a lot of people recently, and we're not asking questions like, are we prioritizing the world's most vulnerable? Are 30,000 plus people that have reached the safety of places like upstate New York the world's most vulnerable? Shouldn't we be prioritizing in our humanitarian stream people from places like, for example, the Yazidi genocide, right? That's a question that's not being asked. And to me, if we're not asking this, if we're not talking about how the government is dealing with supporting the integration of people into Canada's social fabric and economic fabric, then we've got a problem with the integrity of Canada's immigration system. And that's why these numbers are so important, but it's also important to note that Justin Trudeau has made a policy decision. This is a permanent stream of entry, and I don't agree with that. I think that is fundamentally wrong. It's fundamentally so irresponsible to have made such a major change to Canada's immigration policy without a mandate from the Canadian people and without a plan to budget to deal with this. A conservative government, by contrast, this is what a conservative government would do. A conservative government would immediately seek to close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement, because we believe that people who have reached safe spaces like upstate New York are no longer fleeing persecution, and that's why the Safe Third Country Agreement exists. So it should be enforced along the entire border. And if we are going to bring, to continue to bring humanitarian immigration to Canada, as conservatives have always done, it needs to be done in a way that ensures that there's transparency in budgeting, that it's not affecting the processing times of other streams of immigration, and that people, when they're coming to Canada, have a fair shot at integrating into Canada's social fabric. It is completely unacceptable that Justin Trudeau is his way of dealing with people that are entering the country this way is putting them up in hotels for long periods of time. That's not a good use of taxpayer dollars. It's not fair to people who are, being housed in this system. It's not fair to people who are in Canada already who need social programs. So, and frankly, again, it's not prioritizing the world's most vulnerable, and we need to do that in Canada's humanitarian streams. I mean, I don't think that there's anybody in Canada who, would say that Canada doesn't have an obligation to support the world's most vulnerable. The question is how and at what cost, and how do you maintain the sustainability of some of our social programs when there's many Canadians who can't make ends meet? They're seeing rising taxes, rising deficits. And this is really where the core of the immigration debate is. And so certainly this is where a conservative government, we've been starting to be very, very clear on what the difference would be. And I mean, our track record shows that too, between us and this government that just cannot maintain order and compassion. But we're going to continue to push on them. And we're now at the point where we're getting into an election cycle. And I think that the Liberals have lost this window of opportunity to make changes to what's happening at Roxham Road. What they have done today is made this permanent, and we're seeing this reflected in the numbers. So to all the stories that are out there about immigration levels and numbers, that's the real thing that you need to know, that these numbers are not going to decrease over time. They're just going to continue to increase because the government has put in place permanent infrastructure around it. And I don't think that that is responsible. Our party leader doesn't think that's responsible, and it's certainly not compassionate and not fair. So as we head into September, we're going to continue keeping the heat on the government on this. I'm going to head out. I'm in Souris, Manitoba today with my colleague Larry McGuire, where we've been meeting. We actually had a very big town hall last night in Brandon, Manitoba, on the illegal border crossing crisis. There were, about 200 people plus that were in attendance on this, and it's an issue that's top of mind for many Canadians. So I'm going to head out to meet with some more people here in Souris, heading into Winnipeg this afternoon to meet with a bunch of different community groups on this issue and others. But certainly there's a lot of Canadians who think that this needs to change. Working hard for you. Have a great day.